Welcome to another episode of Stowe Nation, a production of Park Media. Before I introduce today's guest, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share, and leave a 5-star review. And if you find this podcast useful in any way and want to pay us the ultimate compliment, head on over to our Patreon page where you can subscribe to be a Classic, Stealth, or Beast Mode subscriber. Today's guests are Stephen Grasso and his partner Marci Talisman. Stephen has been in the fire service for over 40 years and Marci is a flight attendant. They are both lovers of travel and adventure and reside in the South Florida area. Stephen is an avid adventure motorcycle rider and has been taking cross-country bike trips as well as an epic ride up the Continental Divide. He also co-hosts a motorcycle podcast. Marci has been an adventure girl from a very young age, even traveling to Italy on her own at 14 to stay with family friends for the summer. With their air travel benefits, exploring the world was the plan, but they decided to pivot during the pandemic and are now hoping to visit every national park and anything in between, all in their storyteller mode. And be sure to follow them on their Instagram account at go_that_a_way. And with that, please welcome Stephen and Marci to the Stowe Nation family. All right, Stephen and Marci, thanks for joining Stowe Nation podcast today. I really appreciate you guys being a guest.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Definitely.
So, why don't we just go ahead and start with what year and make of mode do you have, and what is your mode's name?
We have a 2021 mode classic, and her name is Gertie.
Where'd you get the name Gertie?
Dirty Gertie.
Dirty Gertie?
Yeah.
Don't. You know what? Don't answer that question.
We do.
No.
Listen,
it was completely innocent. Yeah.
It's, she's a 4x4. We expect to get dirty. So I'll be honest with you. Younghwa, your rig is named Lucy, is it not?
It is, yeah.
It is, yeah. So I was on the Facebook page and reading some posts, and I guess you made a comment and talked about Lucy, and I thought, that's a cute name. Like, I want her to have, she's such a cute van, when she's parked in a parking lot or a parking spot in front of a building. Either way, she's rugged and outdoorsy, but she's cute. And I loved that name. And then we were just driving along, and it popped into my head that Gertie came along. And then Steve took a look at the name, and what did you find out? That it was a...
Yeah, Gertrude means like strong spear in German. So like it's a strong name. And we bought a Euro license plate for the front, the long ones, because if you take off the license plate adapter that comes with it, behind it is the Euro plate size, and she's German, so we wanted a German name. Even though Marci and I have absolutely zero German heritage at all.
We're not German.
Yeah,
but Gertie is.
But Gertie is, and then we ordered the license plate, and it's got the truck stop mud flap girl on
the
it.
Trucker mud flap girl on it.
Oh my gosh.
Which is a little inappropriate, but
you got to put the dirty in there
really
somehow,
does.
right?
You can see it on the Instagram page. There's her dirty. So it says Gertie, then the mud flap girl, 4x4. So you take it as you want.
We've already caught flack from it from one of the kids that are all grown adults.
Really?
Like, that's so inappropriate.
Right.
So,
yeah. They think we're the inappropriate ones.
We don't care.
Oh my goodness. So where have you taken Dirty Gertie?
Well, the dirtiest we got her was actually Everglades National Park and Big Cypress Preserve, which was a lot of fun. And it's a huge departure from what all of our West Coasters are seeing. South Florida's flat. There's no mountains here. It's swampland. But Everglades National Park is absolutely beautiful. And we camped one night in a place called Midway, which is a dark sky campground, which you don't hear a lot of in Florida, but it was spectacular. The star field was gorgeous. And a couple of other campgrounds, they're a little off-road. We went to a place where there's a hiking trail that was pretty rough road going back to it with alligators on either side of it. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That so far, that's been the extent of any off-road, right, Marci?
Right. That's been the most off-road we've done. So most of our travels have been within the state, except when we picked her up.
Okay, so you guys are based out of Florida.
We are. We're way down south. We are, down on the southeast coast.
Who'd you guys buy from?
It was great. We bought from Bob Ledford's, and Kathy was our salesperson, and it was a really great experience. It was easy. They were great to deal with. We got lucky. We've mentioned this on the page that when we decided to get the storyteller and we put a deposit down, our projected date to pick her up was April of 2021. And we were eagerly awaiting it. We had made the decision in August, and that's when we put the deposit down. And somebody fell through with their purchase, and we were able to get this mode in November. So we picked her up November 16th in South Carolina. So we flew in. You fly in to Greenville Spartanburg Airport, and the RV dealership is right there. You can see it as you're approaching your runway. So she picked us up at the airport, drove us over, and did a very thorough long walk through. It was great.
I'll tell you a
and
funny
then we
story
got to
about
the
that.
we got to the you tell about the
what happened
the
was
walkthrough.
the decision for us to buy from Bob Ledford's was solely based on the dealer fees, because we have a dealer in Florida. There's 2 La Mesas in Florida, one that's close to us. They really didn't know anything about Class Bs at all. And they initially, this whole search, one of the very first Class Bs we ever looked at was a 2019 Road Trek, E-Trek, which is like their version of a battery-operated van, which actually has AGM batteries in it. And we went and looked at it. All the batteries were dead. We were like, we need to keep looking. So we had seen a 2020 at La Mesa and Sanford, and it was the same price. And I had emailed Andrew Cooley from Storyteller to ask him, hey, what are the differences between a 2020 and a 2021? And within like a half hour, he shot me back an email listing all these differences. So we told the sales guy, we're going to wait for 2021. The guy was okay with it. So the dealer fees at Bob Ledford's were significantly less than in La Mesa in Florida. And that's why we ended up going with them. So as soon as we got to the airport, our salesperson, Kathy Flowers, picks us up at the airport, and she goes, your ears must be burning. And we're like, why? And she goes, Debbie and Jim Maslow were here yesterday picking up their beasts, and all they were doing was talking about you guys. She's like, how long have you known Debbie? Did you go to school with her? And I'm like, I've never met her before. We're just friends on the Facebook group.
That's
so
awesome.
it was like they thought we've known each other
story.
for years. Yeah.
I was going to say, if you ever met the Maslows, because I met them out in Moab, they're quite the couple, super fun couple. So I can totally see where she was saying that. That's cool.
We've talked to him on the phone a bunch, like we got to know him pretty good. So,
But it's just very funny how the community works. You don't know anyone, yet the way we all communicate and help each other out, and no stupid questions. Everybody's able to kind of let their guard down and get to know each other pretty quickly. It's been an amazing part of this that was very unexpected.
I had a post on the forum about the issue we had, like the second day of ownership. And you want me to talk about that?
Yeah.
So 2 days after we bought it, the first night we stayed local in a campground at Paris Mountain State Park just to make sure everything worked. And we were kind of like running around last minute before stores closed, trying to buy bedding and cookware. We had nothing. We just brought a couple duffel bags with us because that's how we roll. And we got there, and the second day we're at a rest stop in South Carolina, and we hear this hellacious noise like you wouldn't believe. Like I ran over something metallic. Long story short, the fan for the radiator had shot through the shroud, and
goodness.
we were kind of dead in the water. I called Kathy right away, called Mercedes-Benz. They arranged for a tow. She called me right back and said she talked to Andrew. Andrew said, get on the app and call and make an appointment. Spoke to I'm pretty sure it was Dan. and they said, hey, listen, don't worry about it. It should be covered by Mercedes-Benz, but you guys have nothing to worry about. If it's not, we're going to take care of it. So we had quite the adventure that night. Got towed 95 miles to the Mercedes-Benz dealership. Got there at like midnight. We slept in the parking lot. Got out in the morning.
That was our first boondocking experience.
Yeah, our first boondocking
Mercedes-Benz of South Charlotte.
We got towed in, and then next morning, made a cup of coffee, walked out of the van with a cup of coffee in my hand, walked over to the dealer. And long story short, they covered everything. But the great thing about this was we had to spend the night in a hotel. I got a phone call that night from Andrew, and he was like, hey, do you guys need anything? I mean, we're brand new owners, 2 days, and I'm getting a call from the vice president. Do you guys need anything? Can we take care of the hotel for you? Like, I'm like, no, we're good. We had bought the extended warranty, so that covered everything. And I was just, you're not going to see that from like Winnebago or Forest River or any other company. And then they called us the next day. Dan did, to make sure everything was okay. We had a couple other problems with the same issue that ultimately we think we figured out through Mercedes-Benz what was the problem. And they've been actually working with the guys at Storyteller because there was a technical service bulletin on this.
So what was the problem?
Well, oddly enough, they think that Mercedes-Benz, when they build these vans, they don't use any thread locker, apparently. And there's 8 bolts that hold the fan onto the clutch, and they're just tightened to a torque specification, and that's it. And they think they were backing out and causing the fan to come off the clutch. So
originally, just to interrupt for a second, the bulletin that's out puts the blame on the user or rough conditions, that you're riding it too hard or you're being abusive, right? But because it happened so early on, and because we hadn't had a chance to get her dirty yet, the service guys were able to see, this shouldn't be happening. And so it took a little while to figure it out, because when they opened it up, there were no bolts left holding it together. They had all backed off.
Right.
Wow.
So that was kind of how we finally narrowed down what the true issue was.
So apparently it's happened they said for a TSB to go out, there has to be at least 200 incidents of it. So it's not something that's foreign. We've never heard of it on the Storyteller group at all. This is the first time. And we've been working with Storyteller. I mean, really, it was in the big scheme of things. Luckily, it didn't happen when we were in Colorado or Moab or someplace like that. It happened locally. But yeah, once that was all taken care of, they put it all back. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm just glad you guys are okay. That would have been a horrific thing to have to experience on your second day if, like, you guys got in a horrible accident because of it, or I don't know. I feel like you guys maybe lucked out a little bit in regards to the accident.
Let me give you a tip for if this happens to anyone and you're remotely, as long as the fan's not touching anything, because the way it happened with ours is once it finally came off, it was stuck between the shroud casing and it wasn't touching anything. You can actually drive the vehicle like that.
Right. Oh. But not too long if it gets too hot.
I was just envisioning like the fan just like crashing everywhere and I don't know. Okay, never mind that.
The hood held it up, so it flew up and was held in by the hood.
Okay.
So it was in the front, like behind the grill, and then kind of lodged in right up. You could see it when you lift the hood. It was kind of right there, so it wouldn't have gone anywhere. But
it did cause some damage to the radiator and the intercooler that we didn't find out about till like a month later, because Mercedes-Benz of South Charlotte never replaced it, and then when we were in Miami, it started to leak, and so the dealership down there replaced it under warranty. So when it happened again, because it's actually happened twice to us, and then they finally figured it out. So since when they put it all back together again, they used Loctite and a kind of an industrial thread locker above the blue Loctite that they sell that most of the consumers use. They use green and let it sit up for a while. So hopefully that's the end of it.
Well, not to scare any of the new people getting ready to pick up their storytellers this spring and summer and fall, do you guys have any advice that you can pass along for picking up a storyteller and like what to look for and whatnot?
Yeah, what I would tell them is, one of their best resources they can have is the group on Facebook, and to use the experience of all of us, and there's a checklist you can download. But especially if you've never been an RV owner, which we weren't, so this was really new to us, was to ask as many questions as possible and actually tell them you want to see how things work. Because if you've never pulled the handle on the gray tank or figured out how to use the siphon control for the the tank fill, I would ask them to show you all that and make sure that you understand it. There's a couple little weird anomalies that are related to the Mercedes-Benz side of the house and not the storyteller. We've kind of found out the hard way. So what you're going to notice is that the air conditioning system is an auto AC, right? And
for a time it is.
For a very short time. As soon as you put a profile in the MBUX system, it deletes that auto AC feature. And a lot of people on the forum are aware of it. Mercedes-Benz is aware of it. They're not really sure why it's doing that. It's a programming issue, but little weird things like that you may come across. But really, I read the manual cover to cover when we got it, and that was a big help too, because it allowed me to figure out. Yeah. Especially with the Volta battery system. And by the way, that last episode that you aired with Volta was fantastic.
Oh, thank you. It was really fun to talk with Jack.
It was a good eye opener too, to realize that there's all these protection systems built into it, so you're not going to really hurt it. It's got stuff built in, and that the reason that we bought a storyteller was because of the battery. We really
not only is that why we bought it, but that's actually how we found Storyteller. We knew about Winnebagos. Like Steve said, we've never been an RV owner before. I rented one once. I took a Girl Scout troop to Fort Wilderness, with a Cruise America. So much fun. It was a blast, but we'd never owned one. So when we started researching and seeing those Sprinter vans around, we looked at the Winnebago. We saw that there was, something like that, but we really found that Advanced RV in Ohio, and we did a deep dive with them. And Steve, you can
there's a
shine some light on how much time we spent going down that rabbit hole.
Well, we can be very impulsive sometimes, but
very.
There's a video on our Instagram page where before we even owned the van, we were making the decision. We were in Oregon in a rental car, and we were literally going to go to a dealership, buy one of these cool little vans we've seen driving around, and drive it home and ditch the rental car. And we called one of our kids, and they're like, you guys are going to get ripped off. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to walk into a dealership. The 22-year-old voice of reason is like, come home. Don't do that. So
right. your kids are doing the adulting now, the parenting.
Yes, they are already.
We don't see these things in Florida, at least up then we didn't. They're not really around. Anytime you see a Sprinter van, it's a work truck. Mm-hmm. So we had happened to meet another firefighter and his family in Oregon, and they were like, yeah, we're staying in our van. The next morning we're out there and we see them having coffee, unloading their bikes. We're like, wow, we need one of these. So like Marci said, Advanced RV was kind of the first thing we found. Just doing an internet search, and we were ready to fly up to Ohio and drop like $265,000 on a 2016 with 80,000 miles.
Wait, did you say $265,000?
You can't buy a
used
new
one.
That's a used one. You can't buy a new Advanced RV for like under $350.
Right. Wow.
But
I knew they were really good because they're super custom and high quality, but I didn't know they were that expensive. Wow.
They're hand built. I mean, literally, it's like buying a Rolls Royce. They're hand built, and so is Storyteller. They are, but there's a lot of engineering that goes into them. They've got leveling systems built in. There's all kinds of stuff. But we decided, let's not spend that kind of money, and we didn't really want the used one. The more we kind of looked at them, the more we were like, I don't know, maybe we don't need a 170-inch wheelbase extended. Those are kind of big. We want to be able to. The idea of boondocking for us was very attractive. So we looked at Sportsmobile, and but all on that deep dive that we did for Advanced RV was so much about the Volta battery system and so much about the power and not having a generator, and I didn't want propane on board and all these other things. So we called Volta, and I said, hey, can I buy the battery system? And they're like, no, you can go to an upfitter that does like our Class A's. Because what I was thinking was I'd buy the battery system, have it shipped to Sportsmobile. Because I called them, they're like, no, we're not a Volta customer. When I called an upfitter, they were quoting me prices of upwards of $40,000 to have it installed into a van. So when I called Volta back, they were, look, we have 3 OEMs. There's Advanced RV, which you're aware of, Winnebago, which has 2 models, and Storyteller. I really apologize for my coughing. But, yeah, we called Storyteller, and we actually went and saw one, right? Go ahead, Marci.
Yeah, I think we went to see one. We started doing an internet search looking into the Storyteller, and that's when we found that there actually was one to look at. And we went over, we drove all the way up to Sanford, and we were able to touch it. Now, this is, after we've seen all the videos and we've seen Andrew Cooley, going up the ladder, standing up on the top, and we're like, oh, well, we need to touch one. So we were lucky enough to find one that was actually in a showroom, and drove to Sanford, took a look at it, and that's when we found out about the 2021s coming out. So we made the decision then, and at this time, we had actually already put a deposit down on a Bolt. And then we thought, and it was refundable, and we had done more research and decided we would buy it from a dealership that was way up next to the Winnebago the Winnebago manufacturer, because we heard that they were driven, and we didn't want one driven. We wanted everything, delivered the way a Storyteller would be. And we thought, well, before we pull the trigger on any of this, let's go to the Adventure Van Expo in Dillon, Colorado, and let's take a look. And, I'm in the airline industry, so we can pretty much hop on a flight and go somewhere. So we did, and we went over to Colorado in August. And once we took a look at it, and we were walking through the expo, and we were excited because we wanted to see the Sportsmobile and we wanted to see others. Even just pulling in, we saw some other Stowe Nation, followers that they were right behind us, and we're looking at them, and we're like, oh, I think I know who that is from their Instagram. And it was Trail Drifters. So we met them, and then as we're walking through a parking lot, we see Stacy Lynn and her van. So we already felt like we knew the community, but I'll tell you, as soon as we got to the booth and we saw all of the, the real people who run the business, we were sold. We'd already touched one, but now we saw a Beast, and we saw a Stealth, and we saw a Classic, and just talking to the people. And the funnier story is, now in our hearts, we know this is it. We're going with Storyteller. We kept walking down a few booths, and then we go to the Van Wife booth, and they're a great couple. They're awesome. They have great products. I mean, we'll talk about mods, and that was one of the first ones that we did, was put in the Van Wife shelf, and we love it. But it's really the people. But the funniest thing was, we met them, and the Van Wife, she says, which van are you looking at, or which RV do you have? And we said, well, we don't have one, but we're going with the Storyteller. And she's like, oh, another Storyteller. I'm like, oh, is there something we should know? Like, should we not do this? She's like, no, absolutely the opposite. But everybody here is going with a Storyteller. So it was pretty funny that all of a sudden, it just kind of exploded. And we didn't even realize that we were we didn't even know where in the timeline of the history of Storyteller we were actually jumping in at. So it was just kind of a fun way to see it and decide.
Yeah, I feel like there was no one heard of Storyteller, and then all of a sudden, almost overnight, everyone heard, and then they wanted to go check it out, and then they were sold. And now, supply and demand, they can't keep up with all the orders that they have. Still with the 2022s, I think they have tons of orders for that already. So, but yeah, the community is so small and so great. Like, that's how I met Stephen. So first of all, I'm pretty sure nobody listens all the way to the end to the credits on every episode. So I'm just going to say this right now. Stephen Grasso is the audio engineer for this podcast, and it's credited on every episode. It's
I did like nothing.
After every
you did all the work.
Remember? No, seriously. Like, remember what was? I think it was like a solid 5, maybe 7 days straight. We were trying to figure out this platform to use, and you're trying to audio remix it to see if we could fix the hiccups, and it was a whole situation. And Stephen, I remember you were when I think at the end you're like, Younghwa, is it really important to do this YouTube thing?
Because I've been a podcaster for 9 years in the motorcycle field, and we used to do live, because Google Hangouts was so easy to use back then. It would go live right to YouTube. And then when they quit doing that, it became really difficult. But we quit doing the video because we had such problems with the different encoders. And this platform that you're using now, we may look into that too.
Yeah, I almost gave up, and then I went to another one, and then they ended up messing up the podcast with John from Owl. And so after that, I didn't have a choice. I had to come back to this platform. But I think it's worked out pretty well since then. I mean, knock on wood. But, yeah, I just wanted everyone to know that you are the sound engineer that helped me in the very beginning to test all these platforms, and you donated your time. I mean, I remember being up, late at night with you trying to figure this out. So
yeah, it was fun. That's why I did it. I like doing this kind of stuff. So I like geeking out on things, but it was fun.
Yeah. And it also helped that you were a podcaster, too, so... I mean, I feel like without that experience, I would have been totally lost. So I do appreciate sincerely all your help that you've given to Stonation for this podcast. Well,
when my co-host finds out that I recorded a show with you and didn't record our show tonight, I'm in big trouble, because he's on deployment in Japan right now, and I was supposed to be recording a show.
Oh, no.
But I told him I was too sick to do it, so...
We won't tell him about this one.
No, we won't tell him about it at all.
I won't mention the record date or time. So this won't be released for at least probably another 2 to 3 weeks. So I think you'll be okay.
It's funny because on one of our episodes, we started going down the rabbit hole of talking about vans on the motorcycle show that we've got. And on one of the episodes, when I introduced the show, I said, "This is the Van Life Show," and instead of what was our old branding of the show, what it was called was the Cafe Racer Podcast. And one of our trademark things is we screw up our intro every time, and that's just kind of funny. We either get the date wrong or our name wrong. But yeah, I had to quit talking about vans for a while on the podcast, because we got a couple emails going, what are you guys going to do? Switch topics now and talk about vans? I'm like, no.
You got some hate mail?
Yeah, I got a little hate mail. We don't really care though, because...
So... Since you guys had Dirty Gertie, I'm sorry, I like saying that. I'm just going to say that right now. I like saying Dirty Gertie.
Marci says it all the time. Don't feel bad.
All the time.
But what kind of mods have you guys done since you've got her?
Well, I know the first mod we did, Steve disconnected the center speaker, which I think is everybody's first mod, and it really made a big difference. What was the second one? Was that the shelf or was that the horn?
The horn. We bought the horns from Agile, and that was I actually found a video on YouTube that you don't have to remove the entire grill when you do it. You can just unclip the top part and kind of swing the grill out. That made a huge difference, because the stock horn is really substandard on that thing. It sounds like a 1972 Yugo.
Or a moped, a little moped, Vespa coming by, And then I think we've also, I know we just did a big mod, but which one?
The window tinting. We did.
Oh, yes.
Ceramic window tinting on the front windshield and the front windows.
What brand did you guys go with for that?
3M. And it was their highest quality ceramic that they make. We spent a little bit extra, but they have a display in there where they show a heat lamp with a wheel with a tinting on it, and their highest level makes a huge difference in heat. And in Florida, the sun's really brutal here in the summertime, so We did a front windshield window tint too. That's designed. You can see through it. It doesn't. It's not dark, but it cuts a lot of UV.
Mm-hmm.
That was a. It was not inexpensive. That was almost $700 for that window tinting, but it was worth it. It really keeps the inside of the van cool. We did the van wipe shelf, like Marci mentioned.
Yeah, you installed that, and then we did. What was the thing from Rentec?
We did the handheld tuner from Rentec.
Okay.
Rentec
Oh,
is
how do you
literally
guys like that?
a lot. We like it a lot,
Yeah.
but they're literally in my backyard. They're like a minute or two from here. Their factory. So we drove over there. They gave us a tour of the place, which was kind of cool. And they programmed one for us and said, hey, if you ever have an issue where, it needs to be reprogrammed, just bring it back over. So we're like right down the street from Rentec.
Nice.
And that made a big difference. The acceleration is much better with that in the van.
Yeah, the other day you were leaving a stoplight, and he just, you used to be able to kind of floor it, and you wouldn't really go very fast. And all of a sudden, the van takes off, and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't even mean to do that. I'm like, yeah, well, a few weeks ago, we couldn't do that.
Right.
So there's a pretty significant difference. You feel it. You feel it in the acceleration and its responsiveness. Yeah.
What about MPGs?
I mean, to be honest, we haven't been doing a great job of paying attention to the miles per gallon. But before we move on to what our next big mod is, I know Steve just installed the Owl exterior, the rear mount spare tire. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How was that?
I bought. It was actually really easy to do. It's very well engineered, and the kit. Because when you watch the video on YouTube, you see John hold up like a bag of parts and say, "Here's the parts you're going to get." Well, in reality, you now get a box that's foam fitted with all the individual parts and little locations in there, and they actually provide a tool for taking off the rear door panel. I bought a tire from one of the members of the group, and it was funny because he shipped it out to me like an inflated huge tire, wrapped in saran wrap. And I come home and it was by my front door. I'm like, oh, there's my tire. So
Yeah.
I bought a wheel and tire combination from Lawrence, and he's out in California. And then I ordered the spare tire carrier directly from Al. They have free shipping on that, believe it or not. So it was a no-brainer to get it from them instead of buying it from one of the resellers.
But it's scary. You had to drill a hole.
Yeah, you got to drill a hole in the van.
I was
So
out of town, and I'm glad I was out of town because the whole idea scared me.
Marci was working, and I was texting her pictures like, look at the hole in the van now, and then
Yikes.
I was going to say, after X amount of modifications that anyone does, once they build up, eventually you're going to have to drill some type of hole in the van, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, Marci was really sweating it, and I said, look, worst case scenario, if I screw this thing up, which I know I'm not going to, we can have it repaired. It's not like we're going to have to buy a new door. But the install was really easy. They give you everything you need in the kit with the exception of like a drill bit and some Loctite. But they even give you anti-seize so you can, when you screw in a couple of the bolts that are stainless steel. It went, I think I did the whole thing probably in 30 minutes. I spent more time trying to fish the wrench out of the door that I dropped when I was tightening one of the nuts. But you also can see, when I pulled the rear door panel off, you see the amount of wool that's in the door for insulation was really kind of impressive. I went to go pull a piece out, and it was like, clowns coming out of a clown car. Just more and more wool started coming out of the door. So it's a really, really nice product. And I would suggest that if you buy one of these, this is a mod that you do, because the spare tire, especially if you're going to go off-road any distance, the spare tire that comes with is not the same size as the tires and rims that are on the vehicle. So get yourself a full-size rim and tire and mount it on the back, and then either reallocate that space for something else, which we're going to do eventually, or just keep it empty,
With how are you going to do that?
We're going to put
What are you
an
thinking?
agile water tank in there.
Is there a reason why you're going with the water instead of the fuel?
I like long showers.
Yeah, Marci likes
Fair
long
enough.
showers.
I
She
do.
drinks-
I love
she
the
drinks
shower.
a lot of tea too. Yeah.
I need to do some convincing to you, Younghwa, but that shower is awesome. I mean, there's the problem of running out of water, but if you're hooked up to a water source, it's nicer than the shower I have at home. And I've got a great shower here. So the pressure, the hot water, everything, I love it. I think it's so convenient. I like, I take a shower, I line up all of my little toiletries, my shampoo, conditioner, my soap right out on the galley, because you just reach your hand out, it's right there. Just soap up. I mean, I've taken a few army showers, but I prefer when we're hooked up at a water source and I'm just taking a shower like no tomorrow, and it's great. I love it. But so far, we haven't had a problem with fuel. But we were also, another mod that is coming down the road is that we're going to do the box and the B2 carry, the Sherpa and B2 and box. And alongside of one of those, we could always do one of the roto packs with diesel. So it's not like we don't plan on ever carrying extra fuel, but I think having water low and the way they have the switches now that you can, turn it into the auxiliary tank, just seems like a way to go for us. But, just like with everybody else in Stowe Nation, we have big ideas, everything that we want to do, so many additions, so many toys. We already started collecting toys.
Yeah. We just bought ham radios, and we've got the van scheduled for suspension and lighting upgrade in June at Freedom Van Go in Jacksonville.
Right.
Oh yeah, Grant's awesome.
Yeah, we went with the Van Compass 4.3 and these lights out of Australia, which right now I can't remember the name, but
right. We'll
we're
post
excited about that. And then next, because this summer we're planning on. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you for the lights. Is that just controlled in the cabin, or can you use it with your app, like Bluetooth, or I don't know?
So no, what we ended up going with is a switch box inside the cab of the truck, but it also has that switch box can connect to an app, and you can like change the colors and stuff on the box too.
Oh,
In other
cool.
words,
So-
so each switch can be a different color, so you don't
Yeah.
have to wonder, oh, is that the big light, or is that the fog light, or is that this light? So
Okay.
I think they're
That's
color
pretty clever.
you can change it and customize it, right?
Nice.
And yeah, we're gonna do that mod and save our long-term goals of the auxiliary water tank and the onboard air compressor for next year when we do our big trip out west. But this summer, our plan is to stay on the East Coast and head up as far as Acadia National Park up in Maine.
Wow, that's going to be an awesome trip.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're in the
Okay.
early stages of planning that, but heading out June 23rd. So
When do you guys plan to come back?
Yeah,
Never?
Well,
we'll try. So I think Steve has 2 weeks off. June 23rd puts us dangerously close to July 4th weekend. And I won't know until June 20th if I have that weekend off. And if I don't, I will have to fly home and work. But as long as he can drop me off at an airport, I can get home, jump on a trip, do whatever work trip I have to do, and then I'll fly back to meet him. But our tentative plan, and everything we do is subject to change because we change our minds like people change clothes, but we're thinking of heading up Florida into Georgia, South Carolina, cut a crossover towards Charlotte, pick up 81, I believe, to go up through Virginia, West Virginia, over into Pennsylvania.
none of
I've
this
done
is
this
going to
once
happen
before,
like she's saying.
going the other direction. But we have all these ideas, and I was looking at Harvest Host, and because we are members, and trying to kind of plot out. And then we have friends we want to see. But the goal is to get to Maine, and we don't know if we'll have enough time to come all the way back. So
We've been talking about doing the Overland Expo too, possibly.
Oh, okay. Where's that one at?
That's in Chattanooga as well. So the weekend, I think the very first weekend of October is the Adventure Van Expo, and then October 8th, 9th, 10th is the Overland Expo. I don't know if they're in the exact same spot, but in the same area.
And it's I tell you what, for a van owner, especially if you're going to go off-road and off-grid, that's a great thing to attend because there's classes on everything you can think of, first aid, cooking, recovery. They literally flip a vehicle over on its side and teach you how to right it back up.
Wow.
It's a great teaching event. Not to mention there's a lot of vendors there, and there's people camping there too, so you get to hang out with other people that overland. Even if they're not in vans, there's a lot of guys in Jeeps and things like that. So there's a lot of great experience there too.
Yeah, I plan to go to at least one or two, so we'll see. I've never been to one, so I'm pretty excited. I'm going to Van Fest this Saturday, so that'll be kind of interesting.
I think, we talked to some people that went to Van Fest. We've never been, but it looks interesting. It looks like a wild time. So
A wild time? Oh, no.
yeah.
I just want a cool, chill time.
I mean, maybe not Burning Man van time,
Okay.
but
I thought we were going to go to Burning Man, babe. I thought that was on the plan.
That was on the plan.
We're going to
they
make a
keep
big
postponing.
giant stuffed woman on top of it named Gertie and like drive her around Burning Man and then set the thing on fire afterwards. That's probably not a good idea, but yeah.
That sounds awesome. What are you talking about? I would pay money to see that.
Next
so
year we're
cool.
talking about driving it out west and leaving it at like national indoor RV centers and then just flying out for trips as we can.
Wait, what's National Indoors RV Center?
So they're a dealership, but they also have indoor RV storage. They charge $10 a foot, and it's stored inside. They keep it plugged into power. When you're ready to use it, you just call them and say, "Hey, we're going to come pick it up." They pull it outside, turn on whatever you need turned on, give you a gate code. So you just take an Uber from the airport, and you're good to go.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
It's actually who we had our deposit on the Winnebago Bolt with because they're a dealership too, and that's how we kind of found out about their storage is looking on their website and watching their videos. They had some very good. Their salespeople are really knowledgeable about their products, so the videos they did on the Bolt and the Rebel were excellent. Showed a lot of the features, but I don't want to not to trash another company. But when we were excited about getting the Bolt, and really, for us, it boiled down to we thought we really wanted a bathroom. To us, that was like a huge thing. We got to have a standalone bathroom. And the Bolt, the KL version, the whole back end of it, like one of the Travados, is a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a KL or a BL on your Travado?
I had the KL. Or just
the
the
KL.
K.
So
Yeah.
the K.
The K.
It's the same layout, right? And then when I went to go look at them in the dealership, literally every one I looked at, something was broken on it or falling apart. Like trim pieces were coming down.
Mm-hmm.
On one of them, I went to go open their Euro windows, the double pane windows, and the entire window came out of the side of the van. So the confidence wasn't there for that product at all. And that was another reason we just kept talking about, maybe we want to go with something different. And plus, their four-wheel drive version of a Bolt is a 3500. It's a much heavier vehicle. It's dual wheels in the rear.
Mm-hmm.
Really not designed to be an off-road vehicle. And, I have a lot of experience off-roading on motorcycles and trucks back in my younger days. So I'm thinking this is not going to turn out to be a great vehicle for off-road. It's too heavy and it's too long.
But it did turn us on to the storage options though at National Indoor RV, and because we have flexibility, it's not. But for now, we can't make the trek. Like, you don't know how badly we wanted to be in Moab, like really, really badly. Missing the meeting of the modes was a tough one. That was a sad weekend for us.
We were in a really bad mood all weekend.
We were kind of in a bad mood all weekend, but seeing Florida, even local parks. And in fact, when you guys were out in Moab, we had connected on Facebook with someone who is now has a deposit down on a mode, Janice, and she lives down in Miami. And she had given a little shout out to someone who posted, I can't remember who it was, who was visiting Florida. And she said, you know, if you guys are still here, I would love to come see your van. And they were already on their way north. And I saw her post and I said, you know, we're here all the time, so we're happy to meet you. And we found us a county park with lakes, and we drove over on a Sunday and met up with her. And just meeting people and giving them an opportunity to see your rig is exciting. I know all of us get excited to do it. You know, everybody's so appreciative and grateful that we do, but I know that we're kind of just as excited to show them off as they are to be able to touch and see one, you know, without having the opportunity to find any in the showrooms. So we had a great time, and we had intentions of going kayaking that day. And those are some of the toys that we've purchased so far. We've purchased 2 of the Oru folding kayaks, and we have 2 e-bikes on order. So a lot of toys coming.
You're never going to be short of fun things to do.
Exactly. It's all about the adventure.
Honestly, though, even if we didn't buy any of that stuff, Marci and I always find some fun in adventures that we have. Like, we like doing pretty much anything: sightseeing, hiking, doing tours. You know, we really like to travel a lot. That's a big thing for us.
And find good food in different places. Unfortunately, we do love finding good food.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've recently purchased an Instapot, and I'm trying to perfect, you know, some Instapot meals. And we actually took the Instapot to the park the day that we met Janice, and I made my first meal in the van in the Instapot, and it was good. It was really good. Maybe we should start a recipe sharing section on the Facebook group. Yeah.
You need to get with Kate Russo because she's a queen at the Instapot recipes. Like all the videos I've ever watched, we're the Russos. Every single video, she's always cooking something that looks super good in the Instapot.
We actually met them in Colorado, and I spent a long time talking to Joe, and he gave me a tour of his truck and gave me a lot of insight on the storytellers that they had tested. So that was great meeting them, and I sent him some coffee as a thank you. But we follow, there's another couple that we follow on YouTube that have a Revel, and they go, I don't know if you've ever seen them before. It's Jim and Cynthia. They have a channel called Wings and Wheels Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
They live in Alaska.
And Jim cooks a ton in the Instapot now. I don't know if you've watched a lot of their recent stuff, but he usually ends with a recipe in the Instapot. And, you know, of course, they have the abundance of all the good fish up in Alaska, and he does a lot of fishing. So he makes a lot of great stuff. So that inspired us to get one.
I'm like, if Jim can do it, I can do it. So, but...
So what other, speaking of like kitchen appliances, what else do you use that's like a appliance-wise that is a must-have?
Marci's teapot.
My teapot. If I didn't have my electric tea kettle, I don't know what I would do. I love it.
Listen, and we did a lot of research on teapots, and we pulled out all the stops.
Uh-oh.
We bought a $15 Walmart teapot.
No, that was on our first night, wasn't it? That was the first night purchase. We went, they have collapsible ones. They have the fancy ones, like John Russo has the one with the spout on his, tea kettle, so he can do his fancy pour over coffee. But I'll say that the tea kettle is my mandatory item because I have to have tea before I go to sleep. Even fully caffeinated, it's a thing. And then we've now, thanks to Janice, our new friend that we met, who's going to buy a storyteller, she turned us on to what's now our favorite coffee brewing method, which is the AeroPress. And
Okay.
I don't know, are you familiar with that, Younghwa?
Oh yeah, I've seen videos. I was actually going to get one, but then I decided to go with the Nespresso instead. So
I tell you, the flavor and the speed of making it and the cleanup, and it is just unbelievable. We really love it. And I mean, yeah, you've got to boil the water, so I use my tea kettle for that. And it takes just minutes. It's quicker than a French press, quicker than a regular pour over, and it's great. The flavor and the smoothness, it's really
Very
great.
little, no acid taste at all because of the way that it brews. And we
Yeah.
we
Really?
had a brew truck that we bought when we
Yeah.
went to the Van Expo. Which the concept of a brew truck is cool because the bottom screws off, and you supposedly can dump the grounds, but you're actually like dumping out a cup and a half of coffee too. And
Yeah.
coffee's important. You gotta have it. And
Yeah.
it is.
but when she turned us
But-
onto this thing, we went to the local REI, and they just happened to have it there, and we're like, all right, we're buying this, and we played around with it in the house, and like, oh, this is really cool. Then
Well,
she's like,
We actually made it in the REI parking lot that night when we picked it up. And
wow.
because a couple of the guys inside were like, is that your rig outside? And people wanted to come and see it. So we had a little open house at the REI parking lot in Boca Raton, Florida. So,
we're kind of
you know.
attention whores when it comes to the van, because anytime we go to REI, we drive Gertie there and park her like right in front. People are like,
Right
what
in
is
front.
that? Yeah. Did you guys
That's
build
awesome.
that?
right. Back to the kitchen. I mean, honestly, the AeroPress, the tea kettle, the Magma cooking set, and I geek out. He geeks out on technical stuff. I geek out on kitchen gear, and Steve actually turned me on to the GSI products. And friends of ours who also have a Class B, they have a Pleasure Way, and I am in love with their kitchen set that it's a little zip pouch that's really maybe 6x9. When you unzip it, and it has a cutting board, a paring knife, a microblade grater, a spatula, a spoon, a whisk, and it has 4 forks, 4 knives, 4 spoons that are really rigid plastic. The paring knife is actually a paring knife, and it is the bomb. It's my favorite tool that I have. I love that.
Marci's kitchen is very organized too.
Yeah. I
So
like
there's a
it.
place for everything, and
Yeah.
we've utilized the space. We maximized the space in the drawers too, because the Magma set in the bottom drawer, we can fit the 7-piece Magma set with the tea kettle and a small fry pan. All fits in that drawer perfectly fine, and we still have a lot of room to spare. Since we got rid of the brew truck and went to the AeroPress, we've got more room now in one of the drawers. It's funny because you look inside the van and you think, wow, this is really small. There's not a lot of room. But when you add the van wife shelf, you gain so much more storage space. And then with us putting the B2 on the back and the Expedition box, all the stuff that we've been carrying in the garage for, like we have a small solo stove that we carry, an axe, a few other things. Those are all going to go in the back. The recovery gear, we're going to open up a lot more space that we didn't realize we had. And then we're also considering the mod that you did too with the GSS, the garage storage system.
But I think, I don't know if it's TC Boogie. I don't know who it is on our forum who's really, tries to remind everyone to wait until you find out that you need a mod before you do it, or before you make a purchase. Wait until you're out there and you're like, oh, I could really use this. Because otherwise, I feel like we've purchased things prematurely and didn't really need them. And I think that it's going to take a little while for us to know what we want in the back. Especially, we have to see our toys and what fits.
There were 2 purchases too, that one we made and one we didn't make. So one of them, we were convinced ourselves that we were going to get a GLSS. That was going to be the first purchase we were going to make. We were going to, order that immediately and have it shipped. And then we got in the van, and even just the first trip, figuring out how we were using it, we were thinking, maybe we don't need that. Maybe that's not something we're going to utilize because we kind of keep the bed down all the time. Mm-hmm. So we didn't order that, and we just thought, let's keep using it. And then the other one, which we were going to order before we got the van and have it with us, was the wrap-on green. And then we decided, you know what? Let's not get that. We'll wait and see how the cassette or the little Dometic cassette toilet works. And we used the cassette. We used the bathroom, which is really odd for us because one of our rules as a couple is that the bathroom door always must remain closed.
We keep the door closed.
Right. There's no having a conversation with each other while you're in the bathroom. None of that. That's your private time. We went from doing that to setting up this little cassette toilet.
Here we are.
Yeah. And because my wife drinks a lot of tea before she goes to bed, she's got to use the potty in the middle of the night a couple times. And really the cassette, it wasn't that bad using it until I went to go dump it, opened the vent, and then picked it up like a suitcase and had a stream of weird colored dirty water hit my leg and run down into my shoe. And I told Marci, that's it, we're going to order a wrap-on green. And that's how we ended up with the wrap-on green. So the cassette got, cleaned out, sanitized, put in the garage on a shelf, and we now have a fancy electric toilet in the van.
Do you like that? Because I bought the Laveo, and it was cool, but it was so big. And with the cartridges with the Laveo, since I live in mine full time and I travel everywhere, trying to get the cartridges were really hard. So I had to buy like 4 3-packs at a time, and so it just took up so much room, and it was an entire situation. But how do you guys like that toilet? Because I actually considered that one.
It's a little bit bigger than the Dometic. It doesn't fit in the flex space. It packs like a suitcase. We've got it down to a science.
If we put it in the garage, it definitely takes up a lot of space. And it also depends on how you have it oriented while you're driving, whether or not it will rattle. So I think I've come to the conclusion that putting it on top of the flex space, because we don't keep our groove lounge down, we keep it up in the, seated position while we're driving. So I keep it just flat, or actually upside down, but flat on top of the flex space. And I don't really put anything else right there. So I don't feel like it takes up too much extra space. And then we can move it, once we're parked. But I found recently that I think that might be where it stays, is right there, just on top of that black, because the white material that kind of is the housing of the flex space, there's an itty bitty lip around it, so it keeps it from shifting around, and I think it's pretty stable there.
We can get the cartridges from either Amazon, or Grant has them at Freedom Van Go, and that's where I've been ordering them from him, because I get them pretty quick, because they're in Jacksonville and we're close. Mm-hmm. And we buy the coagulant packs from them as well. We figured it out. It's like $1.30, $1.40 per use when you factor in the cost of the coagulant and the bags. But it's just very convenient. We have a routine, when we set up for night, that goes pretty quick. We're very comfortable. That's one thing we always talk about in the van. We feel like we're at home when we're in the van.
It's very peaceful feeling.
Yeah, we sleep really well.
Yeah.
We don't watch TVs or movies really. We play cards or just hang out with each other.
Yeah.
We're not big on. We talked about buying an iPad for it, and we still may on a longer trip to get download movies and things like that, because we do that at home, But in the van, it's we tend to sit around outside a lot, and with the little solo stove, make a little fire and chill outside, and we're happy doing that. And we also seem to go to bed a lot earlier when we're in the van too.
We do. Yeah. And we wake up early. But, we have Yahtzee, we have Uno, we have backgammon, we have a few decks of cards, we have just some fun stuff like that. So
Yeah, it's like camping material, camping games, you know. You're not supposed to be zoned out on TV when you go travel and explore, you know. You're supposed to enjoy nature and go on a hike, and, you know, your day's pretty, full. So when you get back to the van, it's like, yeah, you're just naturally exhausted. It's time to go to bed.
yeah,
We'll edit pictures
that's the
too.
goal.
You know, I do a lot of photography, so we'll edit photos, and look through the stuff we shot. That's kind of fun.
I was gonna drop a little photography dime on Stephen here, but for those that don't know, Stephen happens to be a pretty decent photographer.
I'm halfway okay, actually.
Halfway okay.
Nature
Well,
photography.
you used to be a journalist, right?
Yeah, well, we both were. I worked I'd been in the fire department for 40 years, but part-time I was a Miami Herald guy, photographer, because I did photography for a firefighters magazine in South Florida, and they saw my work on there and then picked me up as a stringer. And Marci was early on in her career life, she was a broadcast journalist out of Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Way back. Yeah.
She can write and speak, and I can take pictures. So
It's a pretty good combination, I have to say.
Marci, you're hired for Stonation.
There you go. Call on me. I'm here.
All right.
But
But,
nature
since-
photography and outdoor photography is new for me, and because being a photojournalist, that's not the kind of stuff I was doing, and I like it a lot. So we try to take as many photos as we can. It's, with digital, I came from the film background where you had to, every picture you took cost money, where now you just shoot as much as you want and then edit it out. But we have a lot of fun doing this. The van has enriched our lives greatly, honestly. So we never now wonder what we're going to do, because we can just leave and go someplace.
Exactly. Very true.
And also the friends we've made, locally, and it was so that friend that we mentioned that has a pleasure way, that was like a really long time friend of mine, and we were talking on the phone one day. We hadn't talked in like a month, and I was talking to his wife. I'm like, yeah, Marci and I are looking at buying this thing called the Class V van, and she's like, shut up. I'm like, what? And she's like, we're buying a pleasure way next week. And I was like shocked. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, we're buying a Class B next week. We've got a deposit on when we're going to get it. So we've actually boondocked with them at a harvest host, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that leads me to my last question, talking about, a sense of community and friends on the road and, sharing the experiences and whatnot. So the last question that I always like to ask to end the podcast is, what does it mean to you to be part of the Stonation community?
Okay, I'll answer that, I guess. To me, and I think I could speak for both of us, it really means everything. It's why we chose a storyteller, because when we got a sense of the community, when we were at the Adventure Van Expo, and, having been part of the Facebook page before we got over there, and it sounds cliche and everybody says the same thing, but cliches are cliches for a reason. It's because they come from something. And it's really true that everyone we speak with who is part of this community is very like-minded in so many ways. Senses of adventure, caring about the outdoors. Our perspectives all seem to be about spending quality time alone or with nature or with each other, and really a welcoming community. So we've felt nothing but a sense of welcome, and then have felt very excited about paying it forward and being able to welcome other people into the community. So to us, it's all about community. And I don't think that we had any idea that that was a component of getting a Class B RV when we came up with the idea. And it was such an unexpected part, but now it's become everything. And it's what we're most excited about.
Ditto.
Well, I guess
That was easy.
Stephen, man of many words there. Well, but honestly, Marci, I think you nailed it on the head. I mean, it is everything. And for a lot of people, it's the icing on the cake. And a lot more people do it because they know that the community is going to be there for them. So, yeah,
Right.
I can't agree more. So, and I'm glad that you guys are part of this donation community too. So, and thanks for all the help pre-podcast, Stephen. I do appreciate it.
It was a fun thing to do, and I'll do it anytime you need my help. You know that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But thanks again for being a guest on Stonation, and it was a pleasure to talk to you two.
Thanks
We
for
had
having
fun.
us.
Stonation is a production of Park Media. The executive producer is Younghwa Kim. The audio engineer is.
Stephen Grasso.
The marketing director is.
Guillaume Golsong.
The original music and artists is done by.
Jason Walsmith.
The sound designer is.
Lorenzo Interiano.
And the webmaster is.
Peng.
Without any of these people, this podcast couldn't happen, so a big, huge thank you. And a big, huge thank you to you, the listener. If you like this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a 5-star review. This is Younghwa with Stonation, and I can't wait to share the road with you.